This is Ready, Set, Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, the universal energy life force, from the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, and all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination, and on this Ready, Set, Reiki journey, we refer to ourselves as guides rather than hosts, as we too are learning, supporting each other, and traveling on this Reiki journey as well. And with that said, I am your first guide, Tracy C. Wright.
And I am your co-guide, Rose Whippich.
And today, what a wonderful honor to have the amazing and talented Lisa Champion. Now, she is an author of 4 #1 best-selling books, including The Art of Psychic Reiki and Awakening Your Psychic Abilities. She is a psychic counselor, a Reiki master teacher with over 30 years of experience. Lisa has been teaching Reiki for over 25 years and has trained thousands of people in Reiki and has done over 15,000 individual sessions. She is also the host of a radio show and podcast, The Miracle of Healing. She specializes in training emerging psychics, empaths, and healers so that they can fully step into their gifts, since the world needs all the healers they can get. Lisa, welcome to Ready, Set, Reiki.
Oh, thank you so much. Super delighted to be here with both of you. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. So let's begin our journey together. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have sort of an odd life. I started working as a psychic when I was 19. That was quite a long time ago. And I've been doing that ever since. I live in Rhode Island, and I have 3 grown kids. I'm kind of introverted, so I spend a lot of time when I'm not working in the garden. And, kind of a crazy cat lady, dog lady, plant lady. But yeah, I love my healing work and I love talking about Reiki. So thank you so much for having me today.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. So tell us, when did Reiki come into your life? Did you find Reiki or did Reiki find you?
I'd been hearing about it for a while and I learned it in 1999, which is 25 years ago. So back then it was still pretty fringy. I'd heard about it for a couple of years before that. And I had already been working as a psychic and a therapist for a long time. And I was just starting to see things happening inside the body. I was starting to see energy actually, and wanted a way to kind of my client's just sitting in the chair, but I see opposite me, but I see all these things going on here. And I wanted a way to address what I was feeling, sensing in their energy field. So one of my friends said, you should learn Reiki. And so I did. And then I started combining it with psychic readings and therapy. So I put all my clients on a table, and it really allowed me to, do something about what I was experiencing in people's energy field in a much more direct way. And yeah, that's how I started doing it. It was really sort of the third dimensionality to the practice that I was already doing, and allowed me to, bring even more change and benefit to my clients.
Beautiful. What system of Reiki did you study?
Well, I think of myself as a Reiki mutt because I've studied with a lot of different teachers. We're talking about lineage. I'm definitely a mutt. And I don't know, I counted with over 10 teachers. Somebody just asked me a question. So I'm just was thinking about it. And I studied with some people from Hayashi Sensei's lineage. And, they're that sort of different than the Takata Sensei's side of things. But I also studied with her. In her lineage, I studied, one of my teachers was a student of Diane Stein, who had a big impact on the way that I do, the way that I work. And I've trained, one of my teachers is a Karuna Reiki, trained in William Lee Rand's lineage. So I don't know. And then because I've done it for so long and, had so many hands-on sessions, I really started mixing it with psychic development. So I was teaching Reiki classes, I was teaching psychic development classes, and then my students were taking both. And then I sort of started teaching it all together, Reiki and psychic. So the way that I teach and practice now is a blend of the Reiki training that I had, adding in psychic development, adding in some energy management for people that are sensitive, And I felt that this was really important because I had students who were, I always say like Reiki, yoga, meditation are the three gateways into
Yes.
the spiritual world, but also into the psychic worlds, right? So people study Reiki and all of a sudden their psychic ability pops open and sort of
Yes.
feel energy. They're seeing colors around people. Maybe they're minding their own business and somebody's like dead granny comes into the room, while they're like, what do I do? Like, so I was getting a lot of questions or getting a lot of students who were going through psychic openings and said, my teacher just doesn't know what to do. She's like telling me to quit it. She's telling me to like stop that. Like, I don't know what that is. That's not part of Reiki. Like, stop doing it. And I was like, oh well, that maybe it's a really good thing to harness our intuitive, empathic, and psychic abilities into our sessions because it just gives us a lot of information about what's going on for our clients and can be really, really, really useful. And we need a little training because it's not something that you can jump. Well, you can jump into the deep end of the pool, but that's quite uncomfortable. So if we get a little training on what is that and how do we integrate it with our Reiki sessions, it's just seems like a good thing. So that's when
Right.
I wrote my book, The Art of Psychic Reiki.
Yeah, and thank you for writing that. When I started my journey into Reiki, my teachers, as I was practicing, as I was learning and growing, I had things come up during sessions. So when we were in our little, broke off with a partner or a buddy to practice, my teacher would actually tell me, don't do that, like
Yeah.
stop, because
Yeah.
she said, this is your ego, but things would come up. Like I would see the number 5 or I would hear something and she's like,
Yeah.
no, no, no. So she would not encourage me to do that. So when I started out on my own, I was very almost afraid to even say anything. And people would ask, like, did you see anything? Did you sense anything? And I would often hesitate because I'm like, what do I do? My teacher's telling me this, but spirit's telling me that. Where do I go? So it's great that you're giving that type of instructional manual, really a guidance to show us how to go through that, because it seems like it's pretty typical as you go into, not all, I don't want to lump everybody into all, but there are some master teachers out there that don't encourage that because it comes across as ego.
Right. Or it wasn't part of their, tradition. It wasn't
Mhm.
anything I learned and it's not part of the sort of the canon,
Right, right.
the traditional study that we get. But to me, it always made perfect sense. But that's because I started my whole career working as a psychic, right? And so
Mhm.
been doing that already for decades before I learned Reiki. So to me, they just fit together. Like, of course, these things go together. Like we should
Sure.
talk about it. And I think it's a little bit more, um, I find there's more openness to this in the Reiki community. But there's still some, old school teachers, and it's fine. I mean, everyone has their tradition, and I think a big part of Reiki is honoring our teachers and honoring our lineage by teaching what we learned. So I get it, and I think there's room for this and need for this sort of add on too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the world needs as many healers as you can get, right?
Yeah,
Just bring it on, bring it
yeah.
forward. Wonderful. So, teaching for 25 years, 15,000 individual sessions. As you have been on this journey here, what is a common misconception that you find about Reiki?
Um, I think there's sort of two sides of that, and one side of it is, first of all, it's sort of a cure-all, like it can fix everything. And I'm sure we've all had clients who flop on the table and are like, fix everything that's wrong with me, in one session or in 5 minutes with Reiki. And I think, true healing is Reiki is such a good foundational healing practice. But I think maybe we need therapy, maybe we need a doctor, maybe we need body work, maybe we need a clean lifestyle and a good diet and exercise. Like we need, it's a part of that. And this idea that somehow we can sort of bypass all of that or just sort of fix everything in one go. I think that's on one side of it. On the other side of it is people who look up, it's the devil or it's, it's Satan's handiwork or you're going to become a vegetarian Satan worshiper if you start, I actually saw an article that said, you're in danger of, I don't know why they picked on vegetarians, but it was Satanism. But, sort of that like fear, kind of like, you can read a lot of crazy things about it if you just do a Google search. And I wonder, if that just feels really fear-based to me for people that don't really understand or feel, like scared about something that they don't know. So I sort of feel like it's kind of two sides of the continuum there where it fixes everything and well, actually it's the devil.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like how my mom is. Like when I started playing sound bowls, she's like, "How's it going with those demon bowls?" I'm like, "Great, mom. Thank you."
Yeah. One of the things I'm super quick to point out to people is that Reiki is not a religion,
Right.
and that it is, something that can go along with, whatever our faith traditions are and our religious beliefs. And, we can find a way to fit Reiki into that isn't going to upset the apple cart, your religious apple cart,
Sure.
if you will. So I think that's great. I love that about Reiki.
Beautiful. So a psychic counselor, Reiki master with over 30 years of experience, author, you have been a part of so many people's journey, their challenges. But what has been the biggest challenge or rather struggle you faced in your own healing journey?
Well, I think it's, like anybody else, like I've been divorced and, lost my dad and, went through the pandemic and the crash of '08, like we, just kind of the things that we go to in life. And actually found that working through those, like I never stopped my practice or private practice. I was a single mom. I had 3 kids and I had a full-time practice. That's why why I have so much clinical experience is because I just, had a full-time practice for 25 years. I've seen 20 clients for 20 clients a week for 20 years, and I found even though I was going through all the same things that everybody goes through, showing up and starting Reiki in the morning, like for my first session would just connect me into this higher vibration. I'd feel better. Even going through the worst things in life, I would feel better 5 minutes into a Reiki session than I did. I'd be like, I don't want to do this session. I can't. I'm too depressed. What's going on in my life, and then I would get into the session. I'd be like, oh, there's the flow. There's my connection. There's, myself getting filled with energy. I feel like we have to step into our higher self to do this work, and then I'm like, oh, I'm in my best self, actually. The part of my life that goes well and feels good. So I just was one of those people that worked through, all of the things. And I think too that I see the things that arise in our life as humans, the challenges we have is an opportunity to learn and grow. So I don't sort of shy away from that. I'm like lean into it a little bit. I'm like, what is arising now for me to heal? I get a little excited about it. So I'm such a healer geek. I get a little excited. I'm like, ooh, something really juicy is
right.
And so that to me is the fun part. And I have like endless curiosity about what's going on in people in general, my clients and in myself included. So to me, it's been the best, most amazing part of my life for decades now.
Beautiful. Well, first, I'm sorry for your loss of your father. I know what that's like to lose, a dad. So I'm sorry for that. But I love that you took these things and use it as fuel, motivation, inspiration, instead of, something that could weigh you down. So you looked at your situation and say, yes, let's do this. Let's overcome this. What can I do to break through? So that's wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. They say there's that saying like the breakdowns always come before the breakthroughs. And I think that's really true. It's been true for me. And my way of doing it isn't so much to like pretend it didn't happen really, but go really deeply into the feeling to really dive deep into grief or fear or pain, like all the things and sort of embrace it, work through it, express it. Not not bypass it,
Right.
but really go into it. And that's where I feel like the gold is in the how we can mine gold out of the terrible things that happen in our lives or challenging things.
Wonderful. So,
Yeah.
what do you wish your younger self knew about Reiki?
I wish that I had been more courageous about talking about it.
Mm,
I think there, and I see this a lot of times in it's better. The world is more accepting now than it was when I learned it, 25 years ago. But I feel like there was still a part of me that was embarrassed about what people would think, or um, kind of quiet, like, oh,
hmm.
it's weird. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Coming out of the spiritual closet, I wish I had been more bold about that or more vocal about it, to tell my story, which I do now. But back then I was afraid of what people would think and sort of more influenced by, I mean, it was pretty fringe when I learned it in, 99. It was still
Yeah.
an odd thing to do. And
Yeah.
I was already doing a lot of other odd things, like
Hmm.
working as a professional psychic,
Yeah.
but I wish I'd been bolder with speaking about it and not fearing what other people think.
Right. I
We
know
can't
even,
control what people think, right? I mean,
right,
they think
right.
what they're going to think you're crazy. They're going to think you're nuts. They're going to think
Right.
it's the devil. They're going to, whatever they think. And that nothing that we can do. I mean, maybe we can through this podcast, educate people.
Yeah.
There isn't anything I can do personally to change someone's mind, except maybe not speak about it. Right.
Yeah.
So I wish I had been more bold. That's what I would say.
Right, right, right. I know even in the late 90s, just even a psychic, you didn't want to tell everybody. It was like almost a taboo thing. I mean, I remember as a child, like I would gravitate in the bookstore towards the astrology and the tarot, and it was like, no, 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 shh, don't tell anybody. So it was like not almost like you had to keep it a secret that you went to a psychic, or yeah, and especially
Absolutely.
Reiki as well. I had gotten around, I think it was like 2006, and it was at a fair, a little market, and it was like, what is this? Everyone didn't even hear about it. And now it's so mainstream, thanks to like
Yeah.
TikTok and social media. Like my kids, like, oh yeah, this person does it on here. Check that person out. Yeah, I know this person. They mix it with ASMR and all these other things. So it's really opened this door wide open. So these practitioners that are leveling up now, they didn't have these challenges that, you have experienced, 25 years ago. So it's
Yeah, I
changed.
mean, for me, it's even farther back then because I started working as a psychic when I was 19,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
1987, and there was like, no, like I was one of those psychic kids. So I'm trying to
Hmm.
figure out what's going on in the 60s, in the 70s, when, I was
Oh,
born
yeah.
in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up. I'm like searching through the library, looking for books, no psychics on TV, no books in the
Mhm.
library, no internet,
No,
you
no.
know.
You had the magic 8 ball, right?
Yeah,
You had the
I
magic.
had it's like my tarot cards and my copy of autobiography of a yogi.
Right,
That-
right. Or you put the coin in, you go see that little one that's in the machine that gives you a card.
yeah,
Zoltar.
that's right.
Zoltar,
Yeah,
there you go.
you could call the 900 psychic hotline.
Yeah. Dionne
Um,
Warwick, right? So,
Can I just say, it's so freeing now to be able to really step in our own healing power. We're like pioneers. We've all been practicing and doing it for so long, but it's
yeah,
nice to see that now it's out there and it's growing, and more accepting and less resist. People are less resistant.
yeah.
it makes me so happy, and because I had to learn everything the hard way. Like
Mhm.
literally, there's nobody doing the work. I started doing house clearings in the early 90s. Nobody was doing that.
Oh,
Like
no
I'm
one was doing
walking into
that. Yeah.
100 houses, and I'm like, yeah, I can fix this, and I got into so much trouble, and it was so painful. And I just had to do it all the hard way on my own and made every mistake in the book. And it makes me very, very happy to help people do it the easy way, to
Right.
take advantage of what I learned and the openness that we have on this topic now, to sort of shortcut people who are going through their psychic awakening, spiritual awakening, Reiki awakening, healing,
Mhm.
all the things,
Yeah.
a richness of information. And if, we plowed the road, we plowed the road for them. And that if it's a smoother ride, then that's really what I feel like my life purpose is, and has made all the school of hard knocks mistakes that I've made worth it.
Wonderful.
They're
Well,
pretty
thank
fun
you.
in hindsight.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for paving the road. So when it is time for you to get an energetic tune-up, what are some qualities that you look for in a Reiki practitioner?
I think it's really about resonance. So finding somebody that you click with, somebody that you vibe with. I would say find somebody that has a high vibration, as high as you or higher, I would say like really look into their background, make sure that they've have some training and they know what to do. But so of course we want to make sure they're well trained. And after that, it's more about resonance. Do you like them? Do you, feel uplifted in their presence? Do you feel, good about your connection? I think there's sort of chemistry, that resonance or chemistry really needs to be there.
Good. Rose and I did an event last Wednesday where it was a green flag and red flag, some things to look for in spiritual healers. So when you say well-trained, what would you define as being well-trained for our listeners who are, curious and want to move forward, and so that they're not kind of connecting to someone that may possibly be a scammer?
Oh my God. I just wrote a blog about how not to get scammed by psychics. Because there's so many scammers out there. And I mean, obviously, like if somebody slides into your DMs and they're like, I can give you a healing for $25, just hand me your credit card. Please don't do that. Like real healers don't solicit it, they wait for you to come to them. They're not spamming you or approaching you. Like that's really important. I think like make sure they're a real person and, not a bot, not a, especially online these days, my accounts are getting duplicated like all the time, and, whoever dupes my accounts will email then all my followers and, offer a reading. So real healers don't do that. And I think it depends too on your experience. So, I mean, for years and years and years, I ran a Reiki share where my students would practice, and I offered low or no cost sessions, sort of donation based. And those students didn't have a lot of experience, but I was there supervising. So it doesn't mean that, the person needs to have been working for 20 years to give you a good session, right? That they're sometimes new people who are training, or Reiki shares are a great place to get to try out Reiki, to get a session. If money is a situation for you, maybe to try it before you spend a lot of money on a healer. So I think that can be a fantastic way. And then I think word of mouth really is like get referrals. Ask the people around who's good. Who do you know around here who's good, who has a good reputation, who works ethically? Because ethics are super, 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 super important. When we go into receive a Reiki session, we're really going into an altered state of consciousness, almost like a hypnotic state. So having somebody who's very mindful of what they say and how they are and their integrity around you while you're in that deep state is super important. But I think if you feel your way through it and use common sense, you're going to be okay.
Beautiful. Thank you. So this can be in regards to a psychic or Reiki master. What advice would you give someone who's just entering this type of work?
I would say continue to learn, never stop learning. And I offer like supervision sessions. Like I have supervision groups where I was in a supervision group for years after that was one of my teachers who we would meet monthly and just talk about what happened in our sessions. I think people are more and more disgruntled and unhappy with the treatment they're getting through medical professionals and through the mental health world. So those people are coming to us for help. And my background was being a therapist. Like I was trained as a therapist because when I started working as a psychic, I was 19. I didn't know anything. And I very quickly learned I really didn't know anything. So I went back to school and became a therapist. And I think we all need a little bit of that now because we're dealing with people. We're going to talk to people that have problems. I always say nobody comes to my office because they're having a good day. Like they're going to come because there's depression, there's anxiety, there's mental health issues, there's loss, there's bereavement, there's addiction. That's just my regular weekly set of clients that I see. So we need to learn as practitioners how to handle people's trauma. How do you stay present when somebody really dishes something, which they often do? This is what I'm dealing with. I just lost my son just died, or I have a terminal illness, or I'm dealing with depression that's so bad I can't get out of bed. How do we handle that? And so I think continuing, it doesn't feel good to be in a Reiki, to be a practitioner and have that moment where we're like, oh my gosh, I really actually don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I'm in over my head. And we've all been there. And it's really good to have somebody that you can, like a mentor, a teacher, that you can continue to learn how to handle these deeper things that people bring us. And I think that can be a little bit of a surprise for new practitioners especially who want to really go pro and work with a lot of clients, and then I think that part of the learning that goes with that is to continue to take care of ourselves. Like, how do we manage our energy so we don't absorb all of that, especially if we're sensitive or empathic, which so many Reiki practitioners are? How do we process it's called secondary trauma, when we're traumatized by the trauma of the people we're working with? And what do we do with that? How do we manage our clear the energy in our room and manage our own energy at the end of the day so we don't burn out and want to quit because we're getting so fried or burned out or freaked out by the session work we're doing? So I think continuing to learn and study all those things after you've gotten your certificates is super important to do.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I don't want to freak people out or, discourage people like, oh my God, I'm never going to do that. But the truth is, that's what happens, right? I mean, that's what happens when we really start working.
Yeah. And the mentor is so important. I mean, I did an internship with my teacher, and it's been several years now, and I still message her about things that come up. And sometimes she doesn't know the answers, and she's like, oh my goodness. So it's a journey. It really is, and constantly growing and evolving. And that's what we do. This is our work, right? Of service.
Yeah, don't stop. Don't think just because you got your certificate, you're done learning, because it's almost like you're beginning now. And, that there's going to be much more learning. And if you just relax and lean into that and enjoy it, it's going to be fine.
Yeah. And even getting like a Reiki buddy. William Moran was always big on find your Reiki buddy, find that friend to have that connection with. So, yeah.
Yeah. So
what books do you recommend?
Well, probably the ones I write. So I'm going to plug those ones. The Art of Psychic Reiki. That's a really great covering of Reiki 1 and Reiki 2, plus all the training on how to manage our energy and really open up our psychic. If you want more about how to open up your psychic, I wrote a book called Awakening Your Psychic Abilities, and it's a pretty thorough guide on how to do that. It has a book called The Psychic Awakening Journal, which is like an exercise book or prompted journal that will take you through the exercises, because psychic is a little bit like a muscle. Like we want to, we need to exercise it to really strengthen it. And also then if you're a sensitive or an empath, I wrote a book called Energy Healing for Empaths, which is a guide that can help people who know they're empaths learn how to manage their energy, especially when they're working in, helping other people.
Beautiful, beautiful. And all 4 are #1 best-selling books, correct?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Well done. Well done. Yeah. Make sure to check that out. These are great tools to have as you're going through, because as we're exercising that intuitive muscle, that's going to grow as well. So it's just, no matter what training I do, or when I teach or work with a client, poof, there's another kind of gift that shows up, and oh my goodness, how do I navigate through that? So it's a great tool, great book to have, a great resource. So what other services do you offer? What do you offer? Trainings, events, classes?
Yeah, most of the work that I do now is teaching and mentoring. So I teach online Reiki classes, psychic Reiki, which is that sort of unique blend that I do of Reiki plus psychic development. And that's happening online. They're ongoing classes, so you can just take them anytime. And then I have all levels of psychic development classes, from beginner, intermediate, pro level, like you want to go pro, all the way to a year-long apprentice program for people that want to become full-time psychic healers, and need help, because that's a big endeavor. And we were talking about before, I thrashed my way through it on my own, but I really love to support people in a community and as a mentor too.
Yeah.
I'm so committed to, I love it that people are waking up to their calling to be a healer.
Mm-hmm.
That's so beautiful. And I just love to help sort of support people through that process. So, like you said, the world needs all the healers it can get.
Yeah, wonderful. And thank you for doing that. I mean, what a great resource. Can you imagine if, someone like you was at the beginning of your journey, right?
That's what I did. I thought about who I was, back then when I was starting, and I wrote the books I wanted to find in the library, and I created the classes I wish I could have taken, and became the mentor I was looking for, really. So it's a sort of full circle journey there, and it feels really good to do that.
Okay, good. Well done. So where can we find you if we want to learn from you? Where do we go?
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah. So my website, lisacampion.com, will get you there. And all the classes are there. I have a great YouTube channel with a lot of free resources that are just, you can tune into and see what's there. All the socials, of course, you can find me. And I also have my own podcast, The Miracle of Healing, on Mind, Body, Spirit FM, and all the places you can get podcasts. So, but lisacampion.com is the place to go.
Perfect. All right, Lisa, that ends our first part of our journey together. And I'm going to send you over to Rose, who has some questions from our listeners and Reiki students.
Great.
Rose?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tracy. And it's been wonderful listening to your journey and everything you have to offer, Lisa. Some of the questions that the listeners have asked are, can you tell us about your book, The Art of Psychic Reiki? And I'd like to preface that question by saying that in your book, you say that everybody has psychic abilities. And I know that people do question whether or not they do have. So if you can maybe combine your thoughts around that and also about your book.
Sure. Yeah. So that book came out in 2018, and it's been a bestseller ever since. I'm really proud of it. And it is all about Reiki 1 and 2. So I'm covering sort of the specifics of studying Reiki 1 and 2, and I'm adding in, training on, if you're an empath, how to manage your energy, how to ground, clear, and protect yourself, how to work with your Reiki guides. What are Reiki guides? Do we all have them? How do we experience that in Reiki sessions? And yeah, I love your question, Rose, that I believe that psychic ability is like musical ability, athletic ability. Everyone has some. Some people have sort of naturally more than others. I think that depends on what our life purpose is. But whatever you have, you can get more if you practice. And there's like a myth, I think, that's not really true about, like, you're born with it and you have it or you don't have it. And I don't see that. I think that, if you're looking at any professional psychic, they have done a lot of work. Just like if you're looking at a professional athlete or a professional musician, we don't make the assumption they were just born that way and they're not working on it, right? So psychic ability is really just the same. And I think people think they're not psychic because psychic has become very mixed with seeing. Like, people say, like, well, what did you see? But not all psychics are visual psychics. In fact, it's the most rare, and it's kind of the most difficult and painful, actually. So you might be having a lot of psychic experiences you're just dismissing or not noticing because maybe you feel it, maybe you know it, maybe you sense it, maybe you're hearing something. If we open up to all of the psychic senses we have, what are you experiencing? What are you perceiving is a different question than what are you seeing, right? So let's broaden that lens and consider what we're experiencing, and then we can really I think, open our awareness to what's going on for us psychically.
Beautiful. Well said. And also trusting, once you start to open up and become more aware, to really trust in what you're seeing and hearing and know and feeling
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
How can someone prepare for a psychic reading?
I think that's a bit of a tricky question, just because every psychic works in such a different way. So, for example, when I do psychic readings, I always chat with my clients a little bit, and I use questions. So, I'm going to tell you, come to me with questions, but I have friends that like don't want you to say anything and don't want you to ask a question. I think the best thing you can do is really discuss with your psychic what your intention is for the session. Ask for what you want and tell them what you want and need, so that they know and they can give you the best, you know, um, the best way to do. So you want to get what you want. You want to have your needs fulfilled, your wishes fulfilled in that reading. So be really honest about what you need and want.
Great question. Great answer. Thank you. Another listener question is, how can someone improve their spiritual health and connection?
It's all about spiritual practice. So meditation, my hippie parents took me to transcendental meditation when I was 10. And I've been doing meditation really ever since. And of course, I'm going to say 15 minutes of self Reiki every day, is that self Reiki practice is gold. That is it. And sometimes as Reiki practitioners, we want something better, fancier, newer than that. But to me, that is it. And especially if you combine it with meditation. So I do 22 minutes of meditation every day. Sometimes our spiritual practice might be yoga. It might be Tai Chi. There's moving meditation, but spiritual practice is the number one thing we can do to increase, increase our connection, become more spiritual, and sort of further our spiritual journey.
I like to say, never leave home without doing self Reiki if you're a Reiki practitioner.
Yeah.
Yeah. In your book, you talk about being an empath. Of course, there's a whole section on that, and protecting your energy, because we can have an energetic overload, right?
Yeah.
And then there's fatigue. Can you give the audience, because I'm sure a lot of the people that are listening are empaths and Reiki practitioners, just a tip or an exercise that they could take away from this episode from you?
Yeah, I mean, I do the bubble. So I'll, really ground, get in my feet, get in my tailbone. I use a kind of breathing and visualization thing of breathing all the way down to my tailbone, sending the grounding cord down into the earth and using my breath to release any energy that I might have picked up from being out in the world, and then being inside the bubble. So just imagine that bubble is really the outside edge of your energy field. But it's kind of like your skin, like it separates you from your skin, keeps the world out, and all your guts on the inside of you. And the boundary layer of your energy field is the same thing. So we need to be very mindful about this bubble we're in. And I think the simplest thing to do is excuse yourself, go to the restroom, breathe, do the ground, breathe, bubble, wash your hands. And as you're washing your hands, with this water, I release any energy that I picked up that isn't mine. And, I've done that all in airports and, hotels and shop in the middle at Costco. I don't know what it is about Costco. Wow. I mean, I get to the back of Costco where the restrooms are, and I'm like, excuse me, I'm just going to go in here for a minute, because I'm like, I can't remember my name and I don't know where to park my car.
I know, isn't it crazy? I know. I feel the same way in some other stores too. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to get out. I mean, you just, but this has been great. Thank you for answering the questions. And my name is Rose Whitbitch, and I just want to then give it back to Tracy.
All right. Thank you, Rose. Lisa, is there anything else that you would like to add as we've been talking? Maybe something that you would like to, that you may have forgotten about? Take the time now. The floor is yours.
Oh, I just want to encourage everyone to continue with Reiki. If you're not sure, learn it. It's such a miracle. And every time we go up another level, I think miraculous things happen in our lives. We take another huge leap in our spiritual evolution. And once you've got there, just keep working on it. Keep meditating, doing your self Reiki practice, and see if you can find some places that you can give Reiki, where you can give. Maybe it's a Reiki share, maybe it's volunteering somewhere. Maybe it's just sort of giving someone a hug, or I call it kitchen table Reiki. Somebody comes over to your house, they're crying, bring out the kitchen table Reiki, because sometimes as healers, we're put in places. It's not always in the office or on the healing table where we're called into service. So I know your angels are sending you out into the world, and you are on the spot when somebody needs it. I was given Reiki to some poor woman who was crying hysterically in the airport the last time I was in an airport. And I was just like, she's on the phone, and I'm like, can I give you a little Reiki? And I don't know. I think it's a gift that's meant to be shared. That's what I'm trying to say. So spread it around and share the love, because that's what's so beautiful about Reiki.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for taking time out of your extraordinarily busy schedule to come on Ready, Set, Reiki. It's truly been an honor, and thank you for all the work that you have done to pave this road for not only us, but the healers and teachers that are coming after us. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, ladies, for the amazing work you're doing with this podcast.
Wonderful. And Rose, would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Tracy. Well, my name is Rose Whippich, and I also have a podcast called Chat Off the Mat, Empowering Women's Wellness. And we talk about all kinds of metaphysical tools to empower our wellness journey. And you can find me at rosewhippich.com.
All right. Wonderful. And I'm Tracy Seawright. And before I let everyone go, I want to remind you that if you'd like your question featured on the podcast, reach out at www.readysetreiki.com. Love to have your question featured on the show. Also, if you're interested in Reiki and yoga, reach out to Feather Sister Wellness, feathersisterwellness.com. So I'm Tracy Seawright, and this has been Ready, Set, Reiki.